Hello and welcome to another episode of Swaay.Health. I'm here at the Goods and Services Branding Office in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm about to sit down with Sue McCluskey and Carey George to learn about brand stories. What are they and why they're so important, whether you're a provider organization, a health IT startup, or an established health IT player. A brand story is something that can really take your marketing to the next level. Let's get to it. Sue, Carey, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Really excited to be here.
I'm excited because very rarely do I get the chance to do something live in my home city of Toronto. And so we're here at your offices here in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm looking very much forward to talking to you about brand stories. But before we get there, for the benefit of our audience, can you give us a quick overview of your agency and what you do?
Sure. Well, we're a marketing branding company. We're located here in Toronto, Canada. I'm the creative director, primarily responsible for the graphic design side of our business. And Sue is the other partner in the company, who is?
Yeah, primarily responsible for the communications side of things. And we have a larger team who work on brand strategy for clients. Obviously have a team of writers, designers, production, and project managers.
Now, full disclosure, we've done a lot of work together over the years. A number of different healthcare IT companies that I've worked for. We've done work with rebrands. Actually, we've done quite a number of rebrands together. And we've done a lot of marketing materials and a lot of websites and things. So definitely familiar with your work. You guys do excellent work. But I am very excited to learn more about something that intrigued me, Sue, that you're writing about and that you emailed me about. And that's something called a brand story. Tell me what that is.
Yeah, so brand story is a very popular item that we're asked for a lot these days. There's a lot of talk about brand storytelling, and that essentially has its roots in origin stories of brands. We saw brand storytelling, though, really, take off and become kind of a big marketing play in our world, probably in the early 2000s, and it coincides with the rise of social media, with the rise of YouTube, with the rise of Vimeo, and the drop in cost to produce those videos. For us, one of those key points where origin stories suddenly became bigger than an origin and took on a brand story probably happened in 2012 when Chipotle came out with that video. I don't know if you remember it or not, but it was this animated video talking about their support of sustainable, humane family farming versus sort of the big industrial farming that was, taking over the industry. Right. So you had this video that came out from a big brand like Chipotle, and it was charming animation, and they had Willie Nelson, and he was singing a Coldplay song. So obviously, decent production values going into it, but you never saw the product. And the whole point of that video was to emphasize that now Chipotle is actually taking a stand on a social issue and supporting family farms, supporting sustainability, supporting humane treatment of animals. That kind of blew the lid off. So then it almost was like overnight.
Yeah, it became this huge viral video.
Yep.
Everybody wanted, everybody was watching it. Everyone wanted to see it.
So overnight, our clients started coming to us and saying, we need a viral video like this Chipotle video.
It sounds like to me that a brand story is not the company's origin story. Like the story you're telling about Chipotle taking a stand and being more favorable to the family farmers. That's not how Chipotle started, right? It's just but it tells the story of the brand. Is there a clear distinction between the two?
I don't think there's a clear distinction, but I mean, the thing is, not everyone has an interesting origin story, right? So, if you do have an interesting origin story, it's a great way of starting, and it's interesting and those sorts of things. There's also that part where it can also become kind of contrived after a while too, because there's only so many companies that can start in their, the computer software in the garage of their parents' home.
Yeah, not everyone has a HP origin story, right? Where it's two brothers in a garage. Not everyone has that. So what I'm hearing though is the brand story is trying to tell the story of the brand itself as opposed to the product or the company.
As Carey said, sometimes the origin is interesting, and other times there's something else that we need to find interest in. So when we go in to work with a company and say, well, you want to tell your brand story, let's look at what are the interesting points of your story, what will be of interest. oftentimes these days, and especially with B2B, we want to start that by saying, well, let's look at your audiences and what will they find interesting, because not everyone necessarily wants to be told a story, right? And when we find what their issues are, it's often they become the hero of the story. So particularly in B2B, you want to understand the needs of your audiences and make those kind of the basis of that story.
What are the elements of a good brand story?
A good brand story should you should be able to look at your customer should see themselves in that brand story. Your employees should see themselves in that brand story. Your investors should see themselves in that brand story. Like everyone should see a part of them in there, and they should relate to them, I think.
So, and actually, to that point, I'll maybe give you an example, if I may. So a few years back, we were working with a company that had developed this robot, and the robot was able to beam out this pulsed ultraviolet C light to kill pathogens. And obviously the application for it when they launched was to go into hospital rooms, surgical theaters, and do what humans can't do as quickly or as thoroughly. So, you would remote control, the robot would go in and it would shoot out the lights and basically zap all the germs in the room. Fascinating. And at the time when we were working with them, we were trying to kind of create a personality around that brand. And they were at the same time doing clinical trials on it, because you absolutely could not launch that without, clinical trials data, what is the percentage of, C. difficile that was eliminated by this thing. And so pulling in all of the data they were working on and understanding that there are going to be stakeholders who have to see the data, like an investor's got to see the data, the hospital has to see the data, or they'll never bring it in. But what was that piece that would really grab you? Like the story wasn't quite there yet. So we took it back and, had lots of conversations with their team and did some research and did some investigation. And what we came up with was this idea that, one of the terms that's out there right now, and it wasn't a very medically supported term, but one of the terms that was really having heavy play in the media at the time was superbugs. And we're all terrified of superbugs. So we thought, this device really is a great tool, like in the frontline battle against superbugs. Like you can get those, you can kill Ebola viruses before the hospital staff even go into a hospital.
In under 2 minutes.
Yeah, in under 2 minutes. Just using this robot. So then we started thinking, well, when you're doing those battles, there have been these larger social movements over the decades that, if you think going back to like the days of Lyndon Johnson, who declared war on poverty, it kind of rallied people around this social cause. Nixon declared war on cancer, and it rallied a lot of support and funding around this cause. And then there was the war on drugs. So we thought, well, this device is leading the charge in the war against superbugs. So that became the brand story. So that becomes the piece that you don't have to be an expert. You don't even really need to have read the clinical trial results. You understand immediately and succinctly what this device is here to do.
There's a sense of urgency behind it. It's, it gets to the point immediately of what the goal or vision of the company is, or what the mission of the company is. So it's a great rallying point, and it's very emotional, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to do that?
Right. Who wouldn't want to join that cause, right?
Yeah, it's a cause now, so that's part of the brand. This has now become a cause. It's not just a machine, but it is the tool that you need to fight this problem.
That's a fantastic example. So you took what essentially was a very scientific, literally a robot, and a product, a very tangible product and solution, and you turned it into something that people could rally behind. Because let's be honest, you're not going to be rallying behind a robot, but you will rally behind a war on superbugs, which at the time, it was a very hot topic.
A good brand story is generally everybody in your organization. It's good when everybody in your organization can say a version of it. Now, you can have the CEO will have a way of explaining that brand story, but a receptionist will have the same general idea of what that is. It might be a little less complicated, but they all are on kind of the same page. And I think that is always a good example of, you're doing something right when everyone's on the same page and everyone can kind of tell the brand story in various, with various levels of detail, but can kind of tell the brand story, and it's not surprisingly different. from one person to the next.
That actually was going to be my next question, Carey. Like when you've done a good job on your brand story, it sounds like one of the outcomes that you should expect is that everyone in your organization should be able to tell some version or have some consistency to the way they tell the story of the company. What are some of the other sort of manifestations of having a good brand story?
Well, one of them would be if your competitors are copying you.
Yeah, always good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, differentiation. I mean, a good brand story also is going to build on that differentiation. And that is very difficult to do these days. I mean, everything's a commodity. So it is very difficult to say, like, what makes us different. But a good brand story should be able to do that. I mean, when we were working on that project, I mean, the competition was just talking about the different light bulbs.
They were talking about the different, was this a xenon light bulb versus an LED? And it was kind of like, well, okay, that's interesting, but that's not going to capture my imagination.
Right.
It might capture the imagination of the scientist who's looking at it, but certainly,
and there's a place for that. I mean, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's certainly not going to turn the head of a clinician who might be casually looking at something, because they're not going to know the difference between those two light bulbs anyways.
Yeah.
But they would maybe go with a company that's fighting a war that they are very interested in.
And we were really talking about a machine that is a cleaning device that is the price tag of a piece of clinical equipment. So it's a very big deal to invest in something like that, into housekeeping in a hospital. So that took that from being just a cleaning machine to almost a clinical device.
Well, in infection prevention.
Right. So much more than, at the end of that, it's an easier way of, talking about that robot and how that would improve things, and how that, has to be brought up to this, takes it from this level to this level.
If someone's listening and watching this, who's, now convinced that they need to go and do a brand story, other than taking a focus on the audience, what's the next step after that?
The next step is to go look at your competitors. So what is the story they're telling, right? Like if you let's say you can choose your top 5 competitors, and you have to be honest about who your competitors are, and go and look at what are they saying about themselves, and what is this brand story they're telling, and then you have to find a unique place within that they can't copy right away, or that you can truly own. That it's authentic to you. You can't go so far out there that you can't own it. It has to be sustainable. It can't be something you can't sort of promise to be the cheapest, and then you can't maintain that. So yeah, it has to be sustainable, authentic, and different from your competitors. And then look at it. If you had the time and budget, you could create the story. And honestly, when we do this, there's one big story that comes out that is, indisputably, this is going to be your story. Other times there's sort of subtle differences. Say, well, you could be this or you could be that. And maybe go out and test that and say, which one really resonates the most with those customers. And
just something, you mentioned there that I want to make sure the audience knows is, we talk a lot about video, but your story doesn't have to be a video, right? The brand story can just be a document, a manifesto, if you will, that people know that this is the story. It can be a
document, it can be a manifesto, it can be many little stories that have an overall theme that create one big story. Right. Like, so when you go to a website, it's not going to be like you go to a page and you're just going to read the brand story. You have to weave that brand story through everything within the website.
You guys have shared a lot of great information with us today. Where can people go if they want to learn more about you and connect with you to learn more about brand stories?
Well, they can go to our website, gsbranding.com. You can see case studies of different brands that we've worked on there. You can also get our contact information. You can email us or just give us a call. We're always here to pick up and have a chat.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, Sue. Thank you for letting me come to your office and do this interview live in person. It's so much better than doing it on Zoom. So definitely appreciate everything you've shared with us today.
Thank you, Colin. Yeah. It's been great to chat.
Hey, I want to thank Sue and Carey for coming on camera with me and educating me about brand stories. I really loved finding out how powerful they can be and how, frankly, easy it is to get started with discovering what your brand story could be. I can't wait to see more brand stories from more health IT companies as these folks continue to work with them. And hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to Swaay.Health, that's Swaay with 2 A's, .health, where you can find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode.